So we're going to have a look at the facade, and it'd be a good way of checking the heights because I've done a bit of working out now based on the counting of bricks. So I'll just show you the method I used. I'm not going to give you all the numbers that I've worked out because you should definitely sit down and work these out, and probably also you should be going and doing a site visit to take some of your own measurements. But just to show you the basic approach I've used, I worked out that on this facade, just using street view, you should fairly easily be able to count the bricks at different points along that elevation there. And then projecting around the front from there, you can see here that the line at the top of that wall, oops, I've gone a bit too close there. Oops. Oh, it's gone and picked up one of those automatic photos, that's really annoying. So I just want to get off that. Okay, so there we are. So again, projecting around from the top of that wall to the facade, you can see that the line there continues across to our building. And so by counting the bricks, you can easily work out the height to the wall moulding there, I suppose it is. Should know the name of that, but I can't think of it. And then you can also double check and count bricks along the column there to maybe get an idea. That should be pretty close to the floor level on level 1 there. And again, you can double check to count bricks to the top there. And then also you can count bricks here from this line, which you've hopefully projected around from the side to get to the bottom there. And you can then scale to get the height from the corners there up to the top of the parapet. So the overall height I've come up with in the end was 84.30 to this line, and then 84.28 to be precise, but that's still not going to be perfect anyway, but that's the number I came up with. And then another 774 plus 430 to the top of the parapet. And so up until now, I've just left it with a diagonal parapet, but of course that is straight across. And what I might also do is make the neighbouring building have that height. We're not going to worry even about putting a ridge on there. So just as a reference, it would help a lot to have that the correct height next door. And so I'm just going to select that, and well, I got it pretty close as it was. So 9632 and plus 100 mil, yeah, so that's, yeah, so minus 100 mil, so 95330 we'll say. Ah, not far off. Okay, so then to change the facade there, that facade wall, it's fairly easy to just select it again, go to Edit Profile, and you can draw a straight line coming across. So, yeah, that should be about right. So I'm going to draw a line here, which should be able to snap to the corner of that neighbouring building. It won't be on the corner when it snaps to it because the plane that I'm drawing in is behind that that corner. So you should expect that, and that's actually a helpful thing to be able to snap to the front there, but have it project onto the plane that I'm drawing on. So if you're not sure what I mean there, you can see from the side, the plane I'm drawing in on is the pink lines, and they are just behind that corner there. So it's projected back onto the plane that I want, which is exactly what I need. And so then I can come across to the right and then use trim to join those lines together. And so then we can see that the stepping here is a little bit more, well, a little bit less than what I've drawn. Oh, so let's start it up again. So if I maybe just leave that angled for now. I could select those two lines and then maybe just for now do something like use the arrow keys to move that down to see how that could work potentially with the roof that's behind, because it does obviously need to conceal that roof. And then I'll come back and modify this further once I've done a few other things on the facade. That's just to remind you how you can modify the profile of the wall at any time. And what you could think about is locking or associating that angled line with the roof. In this case though, we know it's not going to be an angle in the end anyway, it's going to be stepping, so it's probably overkill to go that far because it's all going to change in any case. So before I can work that parapet out properly, I need to put in the other elements in the facade there. So we've got a few important things. We've got those columns or piers, and then we've got the moulding that follows those, and then the windows and doors. So going back into the plan view, the AutoCAD file doesn't show us where the columns are, and so we'll need to work that out. Fairly straightforward though. I've got the wall tool here. Well, actually I'm just going to select the walls that I've already done and fix those first, because you'll see if I select the walls that the one on the side is going all the way to the corner and the one on the facade isn't. So I want to fix that before going much further, and I'll definitely have a look at this on the upper level, but there it's worth doing as well on the lower level using the wall joins tool. So on the modify tab, hopefully you're getting used to using that one. Wall joins next to join, and I'm going to click onto the corner there and use the next option, which is hard to see in this view because it's got the coarse display set to grey, so I'll go to a different view where hopefully I can see, again using the wall joins tool. I already know because I've selected, but just to show you again, if I select that now, then when I choose next, you can see it's a bit tricky because there is a line right underneath the line I'm looking at, but hopefully you can see that line switching from here to here. So we've looked at this already, but I just want to go over this again. And so this wall, again we've got the same issue. And again, using the next option should make it go through to the end, and this one now stops at that line. On level 1, it's even more important, but this is the one I showed you before, so that's done already. So there you can see that wall continues all the way to the front, and there again. So the reason I've checked that on the ground floor now is because when I do the next set of walls, or the piers, I want to make sure they join correctly. So back to ground floor. I'll go to the one with the drawing file showing, just to make it a little bit easier. And then having a look at these images, these are things you'll get used to in no time at all. When you see this with 1.5 bricks, then you know that it's 230 for a single brick, and then of course 110 going the other way, plus 10 mil of mortar, so 550. Is that right? Sorry, sorry, did I say 450? Sorry, and is that right? 230. Yes, 450. That's right, isn't it? I'm not going mad. Yep, 450, and then that should be the same on all of these. Okay, so and again the projection. So just looking back at that image. So how far do you think it projects from the wall? If it's half a brick, you can assume usually it's half a brick that it's coming out. So do you think it's 110? Normally, well, yeah, that, but then you're going to have the mortar as well. So it'll be normally 120 because it's got to lie flush with the brick that's the main facade. So those two bricks together still need to be 230. Okay, so then with the wall tool, remember you've got the single brick wall type there, but that has face brickwork set as a material, and you probably don't want that. So, oh, I've already made one that's existing 120, but make sure if you don't, that you make one that is going to be simpler than the face brick. It should be 120 anyway. And then also you want the material to be nice and simple. We don't want face brickwork to show here, and we don't want the brickwork to show in plan either. So with finished face interior as my location line, I'll set the height to go from ground floor all the way up to top of wall, I think. And then going from this corner here, if necessary, you need to press space to flip it, and then we know it's 450. Oh yeah, I knew I was, yeah, sorry, yeah. Yeah, 350, what am I saying? Not 450, yeah, you're right. So 350, we can just type in and then press enter. Okay, so looking at the wall there, while I'm at it, I can fix this one and the one next to it, and just make the base offset minus 100 for those to bring them down to street level. The floor I'll need to adjust as well, but actually if you have a look at it here, it's a bit of a funny facade, because there is a step here that's hard to see, and also a little one there. So what we might end up doing is making that site, just so you can have that nice flat looking entry. I've got it minus 100, which is just a nominal sort of height, and might make it minus, I was going to say minus 50, but even less would be better, so maybe minus 30. Now, there's no reason I still can't have these walls going down minus 100, that's okay. They're just going down into the ground, I think that's a good thing. So then the base offset for this pier, again I can make that minus 100 to join up with the other walls. And then this floor edge that's coming through the wall, in the end that'll be refined once I do the opening. So you don't need to worry about that, but you should be thinking about it. And then going to the next pier, again looking at the image there, that should be basically centered. And this is where I think the drawing could be wrong. I'd say it probably is, because that pier would most likely be centered in the middle of the two properties, or what there were two properties at one point, I think. So in the middle of those two different sides of the building, that should be pretty well centered, and they've got this opening here lining up with the centre line, which I think is probably wrong. So it's a good opportunity here to fix that. So I'm going to select this pier and then copy that using the midpoint at the back, and then just snap that onto centre line here, and that should give you then a good reference to use when you put the opening in. Luckily we haven't done the opening yet, and it may be the case that this wall here extends. I might leave it like that for now, but it might extend down to the end of that pier. And so then looking at the facade again, you've got a pier here that lines up with the parapet. So it's really important to get that as accurately as you can. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, let's say 15 bricks across. So 15 times 240. It's got 230 plus the mortar, so 3600. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this 3600 plus 350, so 3950. And there we go, that's turned out pretty well. And let's have a look at that. It may be, no, they're not quite even, are they, those two bays? Yeah, one's definitely bigger than the other. So that's probably the best we can do. But I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that it lines up with the stairs there. So that looks pretty good. And then going back to the facade now, it's a good opportunity to go over some of the modelling tools. And so you can see that the the wall actually goes up to the parapet. So I might even make a level for that. I think it's worthwhile. So this in the east elevation can easily just be made by copying one of the levels. You don't need to use the level tool every time if you want to make a new level. It's actually a good shortcut to copy a level. I'm going to move that new level to the top of my parapet. Call it parapet. Oops, caps lock off. And notice that it's got a black arrow. And that tells you that there's no plan associated with it. And I don't need one. So looking in the project browser here, there's no floor plan called parapet. You can easily make one later if you want to, but again, I don't need one. So what I can do though is select those walls that I've created and then set their top constraint to that parapet level. And then looking at the heights there, they do finish a little bit below. So it's probably 2 brick courses down, I'd say. So what's that, 170 roughly? So I'm going to make sure that base, the top offset there is minus 170, maybe minus 180 actually, it's probably a bit more than 2. And then I can start modelling the top there. Oh, now, so I'm just going to get the other, there's one more pier, so using mirror, pick axis, I can pick my grid line. And what's the problem there? Okay, so we've got an issue there with my set out. Because I've gone from the centre of the wall. So I'm just going to dimension these. Yeah, so this has all come from the AutoCAD drawing, which might be accurate, but based on what I've seen so far, I'd say it probably isn't. So I'm going to make an executive decision there and just centre that grid line . I don't know, has anyone worked out whether they are equal or not, the two sides? They probably are, because the roof structure you'd think would be symmetrical, and the columns would sit underneath the centre of that. So they probably are symmetrical, and I'd say the AutoCAD drawing is the thing that's off. Okay, so I'm moving everything across, and then that should mean that my pier as well should be even, but I'm just going to flip that over, also move that over manually. And then I better check in plan that the pier here is centered as well. And you know, a lot of things in Revit you can make parametric and in other words adjustable afterwards. But here I'm going to do quite a bit of modelling, and I want to make sure that's as close as possible to being right. And so it's a good chance here, especially if you haven't done any solid modelling for a little while, to look at the solid modelling options. And you can see firstly that these piers are not exactly on the corner. And this is common when you have you know, a facade like this. So it's set out probably by a brick course. So I'll adjust that in a moment. And then on the other side, I think it's the same. Yeah, so that gives you room for things like downpipes as well. So back into plan, that should be easy to adjust. So remember, I measured this one from there, so I'm going to move them both together. Again, 120, and then moving this one, again 120. Again, you just want to think about that setup, because the modelling that's done from that point onwards is going to follow these shapes. Okay, so we've got this stepped cornice, really is what it is, even though it's not on the interior. It's still, we'd probably call it a cornice. So you can see there hopefully a better view of it. And just try and get the view from the street. Okay, so you can probably work out with the brick courses there as a reference, it's about 4 brick courses high, between 3 and 4, closer to 4. So it's obviously too early for me to be doing maths, so 4 by 6, yeah, it's 350, 340, and so in the, well, any view we can go to model in place. I'll just show you, there is the option to use this tool called wall sweep, which often works really well for things like this. But because we've got to go around several walls, it would be a bit tricky to make that work. And wall sweeps can be a bit problematic as well, because they have issues if you do them on both sides of a wall, and there are other issues. They're good when they work, but they don't always. So you always have the option of using model in place and setting the category to walls. And so I'll call this exterior moulding. And so the first step would be to draw, well, we're going to make a sweep. And then create a path. Now, you could do the path anywhere, but again, just to make life a little bit easier, you can use the set option and then pick a plane and choose something like the top of one of those walls, so that you can see the path following those shapes. So here I can use pick lines and actually pick, oops, so I'll go back there because I had an option on that would have made it a bit tricky. I had the lock option still turned on there. That can be handy if you think the walls need to change, then will need to change, then it might be handy, but I think sometimes that will get in the way. So I'm going to make sure the lock's turned off there, and now I can pick these lines. And I could pick this edge, but probably there it's easier just to draw one now coming across, and then continue picking lines. Oh, now that was stupid of me, sorry, I've gone too far there. I started drawing my lines instinctively when I should have gone to sketch path. So I'll just check that again, so set, and I'm going to make sure it's got the plane still selected, and you can always use the show option there to check it as well. So, a bit hard to see, but then hopefully you can see that it is, when I toggle on them off, showing me the grid on top of that wall. And then sketch path is the option you need to choose before drawing your lines. So I'll just use pick lines now. There we go, that's better. So I'm used to doing massing where they're not as clear. So here we go, if I choose these endpoints here, could probably just continue chasing it around. Sometimes though pick lines is going to make it a bit quicker. Yeah, I might use pick lines there. It can be handy to use shortcuts like SE, snap to endpoint here, and then again, where possible, use pick lines. Okay, so there I've obviously missed a point. I think it was this line here that was the problem, so I'm going to just draw that again. Still missing one. So just have to go and find the gap. Ah, there it is. So that line. I think one of the computers got turned off. Did you lose it? Ah, sorry. Yeah, sure. Right, so anyhow, when you're doing that path, that should be easier than I've made it look. But then the tricky part will be doing the profile. And so there, if you don't see the edit profile button, you just can click select profile to bring that up again. And then when you choose edit profile, it'll start drawing on the gizmo, the plane icon. That's usually going to be in the first segment you've drawn for your path. So now I can go to edit profile. And so again, it draws it on this starting point. And I'm going to come down, what did I say, 350 roughly, or probably closer to 340. And then just by eye, try and get something like we've got here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. So the first two are probably about 15 mil. So we're going to come across maybe 20 actually, and then come up 15. It's a bit hard to see now what I'm doing, so I'm going to turn thin lines on. And then continuing from there, the next is a bit bigger. So we'll say across 30 mil, and then up, I don't know, 25. Okay, maybe that visually doesn't look right, so I can always bring that distance back to 20 something. That looks better. And then it seems to come out about the same distance again, and then go up much higher. So again, just with the line tool, across, let's say 20, and then up about 40 or 50. I don't know, maybe even more, maybe 80. And then stepping out much further, let's say 40 or 50, and then up about the same distance as the last one. So across, yeah, let's say 40, I know, no, maybe 50, and then up, let's say 100. And then stepping out a reasonable amount again, not quite as much as the last one, maybe just 30 or 40, and then up to the top and the back. So I can see there, it's close, but to finish that off, I had more room than I should have, so I can always come back and adjust these lines fairly easily. So this comes, maybe come up, and this one maybe come out a bit more. So it doesn't need to be perfect, as long as it visually reads similar to what's there. That might be close enough. Maybe this can even come up more. Tick to finish, and that will finish the profile. Tick to finish again, and that will create the finished moulding. Okay, so I'd probably still go back and refine that. It's worth getting it maybe a bit closer than that. So I think the top there is well, not high enough, or the bottom needs to come up more. So I'm going to go back again to select profile and now edit profile, and I can keep modifying that shape so that looks more like it. So it's often just a matter of, incremental refinement. That looks better. And don't forget to set a material. So if I select that now, I can just set a material, same as anything else in properties. So I'm just going to use my finished material for now. And then looking at the rest of the facade there, we've got the same thing again. That's why it's worth getting it pretty close to being right before then copying it. So to make that easier, I might go to my east elevation. And there I can copy that down to level 1. Just making sure that's in a straight line. I might undo that and just try that again. Copy, and then probably want to make sure it snaps to 90 degrees. Okay, so I won't show you how to do all the others, but you can use the same approach to do all of these. If you really want to do the scrolling, you can. There is a trick for that, but I wouldn't bother. I would just do a cylinder going across, and then you can do these again. I've drawn Greek classical architectural details many times and labelled all of these, and it's just escaping me what the terminology is, but there are terms for all of these different elements. So you could model those as well. But a good trick there, rather than trying to do it recess, is just to do a frame and have that flush with the facade and not worry about projecting that. It would cut into the render there a little bit, but maybe you don't have to worry about that. So only once you've done all that moulding can you then start to work out the stepping on the parapet here, and then continue doing the detail up there. And it's a really interesting thing to try if you haven't done that level of detail before, because it teaches you about all of the classic architectural elements that a lot of these buildings have in common. Going back, well, it's classical revival. Obviously, it's not a continuation of the tradition from 2,000 years ago, but those elements all do come from that classical background originally. And then again, just going back into here, once you have that, the other main element that determines the appearance of that facade is the pattern of the openings or the fenestration. And so we've got the windows. That is really easy because I've given you the families for those. So I'll just quickly remind you, I'll go in place with the window tool, load family, and go to the folder for the project on the P drive. And I've put a copy of these onto Moodle now, so you should be able to get these from anywhere. So in the George Street Revit Families folder there. The only one that isn't there is the one that I've made today, which is this double shutter with arch. So I've just added that little curve at the top. And often when you're placing windows, you can just do them roughly to begin with, and then later on come back and fine tune the position. And so then for the garage door, there's a family you'll find in the main Revit library for that. But then for the opening over here, do you need to keep these openings the same? I think that's probably the best one anyway. But I mean, I suppose you might do these differently if you're changing the design there. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept the openings the same. They might have replaced the garage door with something internally, but the actual openings are probably pretty similar. So I'll just show you how to do this anyway. So there you've got obviously a door and a window together. And so in that situation, it's usually easier to put a curtain wall in for those. So to do that, what you can do is just put an opening into the wall. There are a couple of options there. You can just use that edit profile option again that I've shown you already. Or make sure you know also that you've got the opening tool on the architecture tab. You can just choose in the openings panel the wall option. And then you can select the wall and then just draw a rectangular shape. So that can be a good option for putting quick openings in. They're a bit painful to adjust, honestly, but they work. So there it's got the base constraint on ground floor, and I can say base offset. Well, looking at it there, we probably want that to go all the way to the bottom of the wall, so minus 100. And then the top constraint is on level 1. Now I don't really want to measure from level 1, I want to measure from the ground floor. So I'm going to make it ground floor and then make the top offset 2100 or something. It's fairly low, that one. And well, that's from, yeah, that's right, that's from ground floor. Okay, so that's the key to it. If you want to use a curtain wall, just make the opening first and then come back and draw in a curtain wall. You can also adjust the opening dimensions in plan, but again, it's a little bit fiddly. So it can help you sometimes to put in a reference plane to help measure the exact dimension. And so there, well, I'm just going to eyeball it and say that's about 200 mil, and the other side is pretty similar. Let's say 200 both ends. That makes it easy. And then I can easily stretch the opening to snap to the reference plane. And then now I can draw a new curtain wall inside that. And the easiest option here is just to use the curtain wall 6mm thick glazing. I can set the height to unconnected and then just type in the height I know it is from the ground floor. It's 2100. And making sure I draw along the centre line there, and then space if necessary to flip that in the right direction. So it's just a single sheet of glass. And for a wall like this, or sorry, for an opening like this, it's easiest to then put in the grid manually, just using the curtain grid option there. I can place a grid line, 900, that should be about right. And then I can go and manually place mullions onto the sides, and there's probably one on the top. The other side, the one at the bottom is a bit different. So I'll come back to that, but here at least I can do those sides and then the top. Let's try and get a better view there. There we are. And then remember, you can always place doors into a curtain wall using the curtain wall panels. So there I'm just going to press Tab to highlight the panel, edit type, and show you, this is the last thing, there's a bit of a bug. It's been in Revit since about 2014. When you first go to load in a new panel, this load button is greyed out, just because it's a system panel, and if you try changing it there to something else, it still won't help you. So what I found you need to do is just go and load in a panel. If you go to the Insert tab and then Load Family, and then go to Curtain Wall Panels, and then choose any of these doors, doesn't matter which one, go for this one. Now, if I go back to that panel again, edit type, and the load button working. And it'll work from that point onwards. It's just the first time you go into it. So I could load in a different panel if I want it, but remember, I've already loaded the one I want. I can even just go here to the list and choose it from there. It's just one of those fiddly little things. Once it's working, it's fine. And so there we are. Now I've got a door as part of my curtain wall, and that will show up in plan as well. I'll show you later how you can change it to a different kind of door, but I think this one's nicer than the one that's already there anyway. Maybe not stylistically the same, but hopefully that'll give you the idea. So you all know how to do doors, but maybe I'll let you try to work out how to do this door. And then the upper level windows, I've given you a family for those as well that is close. It's not perfect, but it's close enough for now. And you could use a similar approach for the rear. So you've got some windows there, but if you want to do a big opening, you could do use the opening tool and then put a curtain wall in there. Okay, so hopefully that'll give you enough to do the rest of the facade. And then we can come back to look at the interior, and I'll do something on areas for you as well. It might help with your master planning after you've had a break maybe.